So Dietrich Bonhoeffer was born in February of 1906 to a well-to-do German, very intellectual family, and this was during the time when Germany was a when being an intellectual was very highly regarded. And his father was a psychiatrist, one of the most well-known and well-regarded psychiatrists. And his family on both sides, both his maternal and paternal heritage, was from a very sort of highly regarded family. Both sides of the family go way back. And when he was young, right around 10 years old, something like that, his family moved from their hometown to Berlin and ended up in one of the most, again, well-to-do areas of the city, where you had really impressive intellectual figures, people like Otto von Harnack, who's one of the most influential historians of dogma, Christian thinker, Christian intellectual. And this was the world that Bonhoeffer inhabited for pretty much the entirety of his childhood. And he was one of several children, sorry, from the family, all of whom had significant talents in one way or another. So some went to work in fields related to the law. Some were world-class musicians. One of Bonhoeffer's nephews, I think it is, was actually the director of the symphony in some American town for the better part of the 20th century, something like that. Bonhoeffer himself was a very talented musician, and the family was not overly religious. The mother taught them basic Christian teachings through their family life, but they weren't especially church going. His father was not very religious at all, but tolerant of religion. And so it sort of came as a shock to the family when Bonhoeffer, as a fairly young man, said that he was going to go into the church, which was not something that they were anticipating for any one of their children. Bonhoeffer was also a genius. We often think of him, because of his legacy, as a kind of moral exemplar and the kind of romanticism that goes with seeing somebody who stands up to totalitarianism or all of those sorts of things. But really, he was a guy who read a lot and wrote and was kind of a nerd, and deeply Lutheran in his orientation. So he had a high regard for the biblical text and was also very interested in some of the disciplines that were emerging around this time, most notably sociology. So there's a letter that we have of Bonhoeffer writing his grandmother asking for her to send him some money so he can buy more books, because he has already read all of the works of this one sociologist. So this is sort of the heyday of like the Webers and the Trelches and these sorts. So Bonhoeffer, as a teenager, read books that are now assigned as you don't start reading them until you're in your doctoral phase of your education. This was just he read all of them and needed some money to buy some more. So he goes off and earns a doctorate at a very young age. I think it's 21 when he finishes, and his doctoral dissertation is a book called Sanctorum Communio, the Communion of Saints. And I know we'll come back and talk about his writings later, but the point in this case is just that he was trying to take the insights of this emerging discipline called sociology and pair it with dogmatic Christian reflection on the church to see what you get when you put these two together. So he did this, and then he was for a time in Barcelona. This is all in his church work. Barcelona, the United States, ends up in London. But that gets us closer to the phase of the Second World War. But what was especially important for his family, as it was for all of Germans and really the entire continent of Europe, was the First World War. So Bonhoeffer was born in 06. The war breaks out in 1914. It ends in 1918. And in 1918, Germany was defeated. But at that same time, he lost one of his older brothers. And it caused sort of despair and just a sense of agonizing loss in the family, as you might expect, that never went away, especially for Bonhoeffer's mother. So Bonhoeffer lost his older brother, he kept his brother Walter was his name, kept his Bible with him throughout his entire life, and had Walter's Bible. So 1918 just really can't overstate how important it is, not only for Bonhoeffer himself, but also for all of Germany as it descends into the really just devastating, heart-wrenching loss. So that the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, which brought an end to the war, devastated the German economy. So I told you that Bonhoeffer's father was one of the most important psychiatrists. He was in some ways shielded from some of the worst of the inflation at that time, but this was because of his clients from overseas and that sort of stuff. But when he cashed in his retirement, Bonhoeffer's father was able to buy, if I get the story correct, I can't remember exactly what it is, but I think it was something like a loaf of bread, a bottle of wine, and a thing of roses. So if you can imagine working your entire life and taking your 401k and it's worth that, that's the idea of how much inflation, how much devastation the German context was undergoing at this point. And that really does shape Bonhoeffer's life, this high-level intellectual, very affluent, almost quasi-aristocratic background through the trauma and tragedy and horrors of the First World War, including personal loss of his older brother.